Welcome in, power up, Dimshow's online. Hope you're having a positively electric time. Mood sequence loaded, chats in the zone, streaming from the grid straight into your home. Binary beats and a pixel parade. He's got that spark that never fades. No glitches, no lag, just vibes that ignite. Charging up your day with LED light. He's positively electric, wired to connect. Streaming with precision, what did you expect? From Pokemon to chaos, he's got the flow. It's time to light it up. It's the Dim Show.
Did you know that sometimes bears don't even eat the salmon? They just peel back and eat the skin and the brains only, and then throw the salmon away? Really, really wasteful if you ask me. Howdy, everybody, and welcome to the Dim Show. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Demoski, your ever lovely host, and uh, what was I doing? Oh, right. Howdy, hi. Oh, howdy. Before we get started, let's get pleasantries out of the way. Uh, m- uh, Howdy, and welcome to the Dim Show, Mecha Trader. Thank you for tuning in. I hope your day has been positively electric. I hope I don't blow out anybody's ears. I adjusted my microphone, so I'm a bit more. Hopefully, I'm a bit clearer. You all can hear me better. Hopefully. Mecha Trader says, "Bwah, I return. Welcome back." And howdy. Oh, everybody poured in all at once. Howdy, Miss Jessica, Pep, Nasta, and Kermie, as well as Tool Guy Memes. I hope you all have been doing positively electric as well as you all at home. Um, Miss Jessica says hi. Pep says hello. Hello. This is my favorite. Miss Jessica says hi, Soap. Nasta says it's the Dim Show. Miss Jessica says true. Pep says hi, Jessica. Kermie says howdy to boss. It's good to see you again, Kermie. It's been a hot second. NASA says, oh my, Giga Glitch. Is he still sick? I'll get better as the show goes on. I have my awake juice. It's called C4. It's okay. Oh, that lost its carbonation days ago. Oh, that's terrible. Pep says, you somewhat feeling better? Um, as well as I can be. Tool Gummy says, hello, dear Miss Jessica says, I hope you feel, but thank you. Thank you. Mecha Trader says, it's time for me to turn into my final form. Ooh, I can't wait. NASA says, how about you do a low talking activity today? Story reading sounds like a bad idea while you're sick. No, I'm fine. Tool Gaming says, you won't get tired of my voice, will you? Hopefully you guys won't get tired of my voice. Miss Jessica says, oh, are you sick or not? Yeah. Um, Miss Jessica says, ah, C4. Yes. It has quite, a kick to it. I guess you could say it's got a bit of a blast. uh, Anyways, if I'm too loud, please be sure to let me know. As this is a story reading session, so how this is gonna work is I'm going to read 3 stories. You all have asked me for this for a long time, and I've wanted to do something different on the show for a long time. I know that I've only been doing one thing, and I want to branch out, and well, you know, it always hurts once you rip that band-aid off, but once you do, dadgum does it heal up quite nicely. That is a lie. Do not do that. Band-aids are there for a reason. Only do it when it doesn't hurt anymore once you flick it or something. I can't remember. You humans are weird. Oh howdy and welcome to the Dim Show. God of Dreams, Dreamy Bowser. No need to add Dreamy. We already stand. He's the stuff dreams are made of. Tool Gaming says, I wish Dim the best of luck to your recovery. Brr, thank you. Ms. Jessica says, I'm confused, by the way. Ah, that makes two of us. It's okay. I hope everybody is doing well, and I hope you all are ready. And I can't wait to get started, so without further ado, let us begin. Alrighty. So, I am gonna say none of these stories are original. Every single one of these are things that you might have already read before. Who knows? If one of you guys are like a story buff, but nevertheless, I will read these stories. I will then listen and read to the live audience's reaction of it, and then move on to the next one. And maybe, if we have time, and if I'm feeling able, and if my brain hasn't melted by the end of this episode, we will all read some funny ones too. But without further ado, we are going to be starting off, and I will not be reading chat during this. I will be going through the whole story, and hopefully I won't try to cut this unless I get tickled or get spooked. We're going to be reading The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Nancy, next, Miss Summers said. Nancy was 12, and her school friends breathed heavily as she went forward, switching her skirt, and it took a slip daintily from the box. Bill Jr., Miss Summers said, and Billy, his face red, and his feet overlarge, near knocked the box over as he got the paper out. Tessie, Miss Summers said. She hesitated for a minute, looking around defiantly, and then set her lips and went up to the box. She snatched a paper out and held it behind her. Bill, Miss Summers said. And Bill Hutchison reached into the box and felt around, bringing his hand out as, at last, with the slip of paper in it. The crowd went quiet. A girl whispered, I hope it's not Nancy. And the sound of the whisper reached the edges of the crowd. It's not the way it used to be, Old Man Warner said clearly. People ain't the way they used to be. All right, Miss Summers said. Open the papers. Harry, you open Little Dave's. Mr. Graves opened the slip of paper, and there was a general sigh through the crowd as he held it up, and everyone could see that it was blank. Nancy and Bill Jr. opened theirs at the same time, and both beamed and laughed, turning around to the crowd and holding their slips of paper above their heads. Tessie, Miss Summers said. There was a pause. And then Miss Summer looked at Bill Hutchison, and Bill unfolded his paper and showed it. It was blank. It's Tessie, Miss Summers said, and his voice was hushed. Show us her paper, Bill. Bill Hutchison went over to his wife and forced the slip of paper out of her hand. It had a black spot on it. The black spot Miss Summers had made the night before with the heavy pencil in the coal company office. Bill Hutchison held it up, and there was a stir in the crowd. All right, folks, Miss Summers said. Let's finish quickly. Although the villagers had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered to use stones. The pile of stones the boys had made earlier was ready. There were stones on the ground with the blowing scraps of paper that had come out of the box. Delacroix set a stone so large she had to pick it up with both hands and turn to Miss Dunbar.
Come on,
she said.
hurry up.
Miss Dunbar had small stones in both hands, and she said, gasping for breath, I can't run at all. You'll have to go ahead. I'll catch up with you. The children had stones already, and someone gave little Davy Hutchison a few pebbles. The children, Tessie Hutchison was in the center of a cleared space by now, and she held her hands out desperately as the villagers moved in on her.
It isn't fair,
She said. A stone hit out. I hit her on the side of of the head. Old Man Warner was saying, come on, everyone. Steve Adams was in the front of the crowd of villagers, with Miss Greaves beside him.
it isn't fair, it isn't right.
Miss Hutchison screamed, and then they were upon her. Ah, there we go. Miss Martin and his older son Baxter held the black box securely on the stool until Miss Summers had stirred the paper. Oh, shoot. Well. Whoops, sorry everybody, hold on. Am I reading this backwards? Am I on page? Oh, I'm on the last page! Whoops! Okay, well, like I said, my brain ain't working too. My brain is a bit overheated. NASA said this story is about a ritualistic murder. I'm sorry, Dim, this isn't comfy for me. That is okay. Those of you, children. Okay, so I know I'm saying this a bit late. Those of you that are a bit squeamish. Those of you that are a bit too young. Parents, please, turn your children away. This is not family friendly. This is gonna get real hot and heavy real quick. I'm only going to do stuff like this once. I want this to be a family-friendly show. So, fair warning. You have been warned. I just read the ending, didn't I? Huh. Well. That was a fun story. Okay, next story! We're gonna read The Jaunt by Stephen King. Definitely. I'm going to read this right this time. And I'm also going to turn the music down a bit. I don't want it to be too loud. There we go. Is that good? Okay, music is loud. Well, at least we got that adjusted beforehand. I'm glad everybody thought that was hilarious. Okay. Here we go. Oh, howdy, and welcome to the Dimshow, Kobe Pro. Thank you for tuning in. Kobe says, howdy, and welcome to the Dimshow, Kobe the Pro. Thank you for tuning in. I hope your day has been positively electric. Okay, so, my bad. Kobe, this is not for the faint of heart. I'm gonna be reading very scary stories, so please be warned. And I hope you enjoy the show. Okay, this is The Jaunt by Stephen King. Chapter 1.
This is the last call for John 701.
The pleasant female voice echoed through the blue concourse of New York's Port Authority terminal. The PAT had not changed much in the last 300 years or so. It was still a gungy and a little frightening. The automated female voice was probably the most pleasant thing about it.
This is John's service to Whitehead City, Mars.
The voice continued.
All ticketed passengers should now be in the Blue Concourse Sleep Lounge. Make sure your validation papers are in order. Thank you.
The upstairs lounge was not at all grungy. It was wall-to-wall carpeted in oyster gray. The walls were an eggshell white and hung with pleasant non-representational prints. A steady, soothing progression of colors met and swirled on the ceiling. There were 100 couches in the large room, neatly spaced in rows often. 5 jaunt attendants circulate, speaking in low, cherry voices and offering glasses of milk. At one side of the room was the entryway, flanked by armed guards, and another jaunt attendant who was checking the validation papers of the latecomer. A harried-looking businessman with the New York World Times folded under one arm. Directly opposite, the floor dropped away in a throw about 5 feet wide and perhaps 10 feet long. It passed through a doorless opening and looked a bit like a child slide. The Oates family lay side by side on 4 jaunt couches near the far end of the room. Mark Oates and his wife, Marylize, blinked at the 2 children.
Daddy, will you tell me about the jaunt now?
Ricky asked.
You promised. Yeah, Dad, you promised.
Patricia added, and giggled shyly for no good reason. A businessman with a build like a bull glanced over at them and went back to the fodder of papers as he was examining. As he lay on his back, his spit-shine shoes neatly together. From everywhere came the low murmur of conversation and the rustle of passengers settling down on the jaunt couches. Mark glanced over at Marylize Oates and winked. She winked back. But she was almost as nervous as Patty sounded. Why not? Mark thought. First John for all 3 of them. He and Marylize had discussed the advantages and drawbacks of moving the whole family for the last 6 months. Since he had gotten a notification from Texaco Water that he was being transferred to Whitehead Go for the 2 years Mark would be stationed on Mars. He wondered now, looking at Marylize's paled face, if she was regretting that decision. He glanced at his watch and saw it was still almost half an hour to jaunt time. That was enough time to tell the story. And he supposed it would take the kids' minds off their nervousness. Who knew? Maybe it would even cool Marylize out a little. All right, he said. Ricky and Pat were watching him seriously. His son, 12, his daughter, 9. He told himself again that Ricky would be deep in the swamp of puberty, and his daughter would likely be developing breasts by the time they got back to Earth. And again found it difficult to believe. The kids would be going to the tiny Whitehead Combined School, with the 100-odd engineering and oil company brats that were there. His son might well be going on a geology field trip to Phobos, not so many months distant. It was difficult to believe, but true. Who knows? He thought wryly. Maybe it would do something about my jaunt jumps, too. So far as we knows, he began, the jaunt was invented about 320 years ago, around the year 1987, by a fellow named Victor Corn. He did it as part of a private research project that was funded by some government money. And eventually the government took it over. Of course, in the end, it came down to either the government or the oil companies. The reason we don't know the exact date is because Karun was something of an eccentric.
You mean he was crazy, Dad?
Ricky asked. Eccentric means a little bit crazy. No, wait.
Eccentric means a little bit crazy, dear.
Marily's said, and smiled across the children at Mark. She looked a little less nervous now, he thought. Oh, anyways, he had been experimenting with the process for quite some time before he informed the government of what he had. Mark went on. And he only told them because he was running out of money, and they weren't going to refund him.
Your money cheerfully refunded,
Pat said, and giggled shrilly again. That's right, honey, Mark said, and ruffled her hair gently. At the far end of the room, he saw a door slide noiselessly open, and 2 more attendants came out, dressed in the bright red jumpers of the John service. Pushing a rolling table, on it was a stainless steel nozzle attached to a rubber hose. Beneath the table skirts, tastefully hidden, Mark knew there were 2 bottles of gas. In the net bag hooked to the side were 100 disposable masks. Mark went on talking, not wanting his people to see the representative of Lithe until they had to. And, if he was given enough time to tell the whole story, they would welcome the gas passers with open arms. Considering the alternative, of course, you know that the jaunt is teleportation. No more, no less, he said. Sometimes in college chemistry and physics they call it the Karoon process. But really it's just teleportation. And it was Karoon himself, if you can believe the stories, who named it the jaunt. He was a science fiction reader, and there's a story by a man named Alfred Bester. The Stars, My Destination, it's called. And this fellow, Bester, made up the word jaunt for teleportation in it. Except in his book, you could jaunt just by thinking about it. And we can't really do that. The attendants were fixing a mask to the steel nozzle and handing it to an elderly woman at the far end of the room. She took it, inhaled once, and fell quiet and limp on her couch. Her shirt had pulled up a little, revealing one slack thigh road mapped with varicose veins. An attendant considerately readjusted for her while the other pulled off the used mask and affixed a fresh one. It was a process that made Mark think of the plastic glasses in motel rooms. He wished to code that Patty would cool out a little bit. He had seen the children who had to be held down, and sometimes they screamed as the rubber mask covered their faces. It was not an abnormal reaction in a child, he supposed, but it was nasty to watch, and he didn't want to see it happen to Patty. About Rick, he felt more confident. I guess you could say the jaunt came along at the last possible moment, he resumed. He spoke towards Ricky, but reached across and took his daughter's hand. Her palm was cool and sweating lightly. The word was running out of oil, and most of what was left belonged to the Middle Eastern desert peoples, who were committed to it as a political weapon. They had formed an oil cartel called OPEC.
What's a cartel, Daddy?
Patty asked. Well, a monopoly, Mark said.
Like a club, honey.
Marily's ass said.
And you could only be in that club if you had lots of oil. Oh!
I don't have time to sketch the whole mess in for you, Mark said. You'll study some of it in school, but it was a mess. Let's let it go at that. If you owned a car, you could only drive it 2 days a week, and gasoline cost 50-odd bucks a gallon.
Gosh!
Ricky said.
It only costs 4 cents or so a gallon now, doesn't it, Dad?
Mark smiled. That's why we're going, Rick. There's enough oil on Mars to last almost 8,000 years, and enough on Venus to last another 20,000. But oil isn't even important anymore. Now what we need most of all is...
Water!
Patty cried. and the businessman looked up from his papers and smiled at her for a moment. "That's right, Mark said. Because in the years 1960 and 2030, we poisoned most of ours. The first water lift from the Martian ice caps was called...
Operation Straw.
That was Ricky. Yes, 2045 or thereabouts. But long before that, the jaunt was being used to find sources of clean water here on Earth. And now water is our major Martian export. The oil is strictly a sideline, but it was important then." The kids nodded.
Oh, yeah, oil, yeah.
"The point is, those things were always there, but we were only able to get it because of the jaunt. When Karun invented his process, the world was slipping into a dark age. A winter before, over 10,000 people had frozen to death in the United States alone because there wasn't enough energy to heat them,"
Oh, yuck.
said Patty, matter-of-factly. Oh, so I guess when people are like,
Oh, yuck.
Mark glanced to his right and saw the attendants talking to a timid-looking man, persuading him. At least he took the mask, seemed to fall dead on his couch seconds later. First timer, Mark thought. You can always tell. For Karun, it started with a pencil, some keys, a wristwatch, then some mice. The mice showed him there was a problem. Victor Karun came back to his laboratory. Victor Karun came back to his laboratory in a stumbling fever of excitement. He thought he knew how Morse had felt, and Alexander Graham, and Edison. But this was bigger than all of them. And twice, he had almost wrecked the truck on the way back from the pet shop in New Palace, where he had spent his last $20 on 9 white mice. What he had left in the world was 93 cents in his right front pocket, and the $18 in his savings account. But this did not occur to him, and if it had, it certainly would not have bothered him. The lab was in a renovated barn at the end of a mile-long dirt-off road, off of Route 26. It was making the turn onto the road where he had just missed cracking up his brat pickup truck for the second time. The gas tank was almost empty, and there would be no more for 10 days to 2 weeks. But this did not concern him either. His mind was in a delirious whirl. What had happened was not totally unexpected. No. One of the reasons the government had funded him, had even funded him to the paltry tune of 20,000, was because the unrealized possibility that had always been there in the field of particle transmission. But to have it happen like this, suddenly, with no warning, and powered by less electricity than needed to run a TV. Code! Scads! He brought the brat to a screech halt in the dirt of the dooryard, grabbed a box on the dirty seat beside him, and grabbed its handles. On the box were dogs, cats, and hamsters and goldfish, and the legend, "I came from Stackpole's House of Pets," and ran for the big double doors. From inside the box came the scurry and whisk of his test subjects. He tried to push one off the big doors, open and along its track, and when it wouldn't budge, he remembered that he had locked it. Karun uttered aloud, "Scrap!" and fumbled for his keys. The government commanded that the lab be locked at all times. It was one of the strings they put on their money. But Karun kept forgetting. He brought his keys out for a moment and simply stared at them, mesmerized, running the ball of his thumb over the notches in the brat's ignition key. Then he thought again. Code! Scrap! Then he scrabbled through the keys on the door, through the keys on the ring of the Yale key that unlocked the barn door. At first, the telephone had been used inadvertently. Bell crying into it, "Watson, come here!" When he had spilled some acid on his papers and himself. So the first act of teleportation had occurred by accident. Victor Caroon had teleported the first 2 fingers on his left hand across the 50-yard width of the barn. Caroon had set up 2 portals at opposite sides of the barn. On his end was a simple ion gun, available from any electronic supply warehouse under $500. On the other end, standing just beyond the far portal, both of them rectangular, and the size of a paperback book, was a cloud chamber. Between them was what appeared to be an opaque shower curtain, except shower curtains were not made of lead. The idea was to shoot the ions through Portal 1 and then walk around and watch them streaming across the cloud chamber standing just beyond Portal 2. With the lead shield between to prove that they really were being transmitted, except that, for the last 2 years, the process had only worked twice. And Carew didn't have the slightest idea why. As he was setting the ion gun in place, his fingers had slipped through the portal. Were ordinarily no problem. But this morning his hip had also brushed the toggle switch on the control panel at the left of the portal. He was not aware of what had happened. The machinery gave off only the lowest audible hum, until he felt a tingling sensation in his fingers. It was not like an electric shock. Caroon wrote in his one and only article on the subject before the world government shut him up. The article was published, of all places, in Popular Mechanics. He had sold it to them for $750 in a last-ditch effort to keep the jaunt a matter of private enterprise. There was none of that unpleasant tingle that one gets if one gasps a fray lamp cord, for instance. It was more like the sensation one gets if one puts one hand on the casing of a small machine that is working very hard. The vibration is so fast and light that it is literally a tingling sensation. Then I looked down at the portal and saw that my index finger was gone on a slightly diagonal slant through the middle knuckle, and my second finger had gone slightly above that. In addition, the nail portion of my third finger had disappeared. Haroon had jerked his hand back instinctively, crying out. He so much expected to see blood. He wrote later that he had actually hallucinated blood for a moment or two. His elbow struck the ion gun and knocked it off the tables. In it, he stood there, with his fingers in his mouth, verifying that they were still there, and whole. The thought that he had been working too hard crossed his mind, and the other thought crossed his mind. The thought that the last set of modifications might have done something. He did not push his fingers back in. In fact, Caroon only jaunted once more in his entire life. At first, he did nothing. He took a long, aimless walk around the barn, running his hand through his hair, wondering if he should call Carson in New Jersey, or perhaps Buffington in Charlotte. Carson wouldn't accept a collect phone call. The cheap blast kicking the scrapyard. But Buffington probably would. Then an idea struck as he ran across to Portal 2, thinking that if his fingers had actually crossed the barn, there might be some sign of it. There was not, of course. Portal 2 stood atop 3 stacked Palmana orange crates, looking like nothing so much as one of those toy guillotines missing the blade. On one side of its stainless steel frame was a plug-in jack, from which a cord ran back to the transmission terminal, which was a little more than a particle transformer hooked into the computer feed line. Which reminded him. Caroon glanced at his watch and saw it was 11:15. His deal with the government consisted of short money, plus computer time, which was infinitely valuable. His computer tie-in lasted until 3 o'clock this afternoon. Then it was goodbye until Monday. He had to get moving. He had to do something. I glanced at the pile of crates again, Karun writes in his Popular Mechanics article. And then I looked at the pads of my fingers, and sure enough, proof was there. It would not, I thought, then convince anyone but myself. But in the beginning, of course, it is only oneself that one has to convince.
What was it, Dad?
Ricky asked.
Yeah.
Patty added.
What?
Mark grinned a little. They were all hooked now, even Merrill Eyes. They had even forgotten where they were. From the corner of his eye he could see the jaunt attendants whisper-wheeling their carts slowly among the jaunters, putting them to sleep. It was never as rapid a process in the civilian sector as it was in the military. He had discovered civilians got nervous and wanted to talk it over. The nozzle and the rubber mask were too reminiscent of hospital operating rooms, where the surgeon with his knives lurked somewhere behind the anesthetist, with their selection of gases in stainless steel canisters. Sometimes there was panic, hysteria even, and always there were a few who simply lost their nerve. Mark had observed 2 of these as he spoke to the children. 2 men who had simply risen from their couches, walked across to the entryway with no fanfare at all, unpinned the validation papers that had been affixed to their lapels, turned them in, and exited without looking back. Jaunt attendants were under strict instructions not to argue with those who left. There were always standbys, sometimes as many as 40 or 50 of them, hoping against hope. As those who simply couldn't take it left, standbys were let in with their own validations pinned to their shirts. Karun found 2 splinters in his index finger, he told the children. He took them out and put them aside. One was lost, but you can see the other one in the Smithsonian Annex in Washington. It's in a hermetically sealed glass case near the moon rocks the first space travelers brought back from the moon. Our moon, Dad? Or one of Mars's? Ricky asks. Ours, Mark added, smiling a little. Only one manned rocket flight had ever landed on Mars, Ricky, and that was a French expedition somewhere about 2030. Anyways, that's why there happened to be an plain old splinter from an orange crate in the Smithsonian Institution, because it's the first object that we have that was actually teleported, jaunted across space.
What happened then?
Patty. Howdy, and welcome to the Dimshow. Grossa. Thank you for tuning in. I hope your day has been positively electric. Grossa says, I'd love to stay, but I'm spending time with my family. Family is important, and honestly, I don't think many would have the stomach for this, so it's probably for the best. Spare yourself, Rosa, for the scary happens here. I actually think this is just a sci-fi novel I'm just reading. Huh. How big is this again? Well, I do not know how big this is. Okay. Alrighty. Well, continuing the story. Howdy, and welcome to the Dim Show. Alex Does YT. Thank you for tuning in. Alex Does says, can I suggest a story? Maybe next time, Alex Does. But first of all, thank you for tuning in. This is my first time doing a storytelling. Same with you, Miss Jessica. Since this is my first time doing a storytelling or anything like this, I want to keep it strictly by the script. So I can know what to expect, or so I can, get this down pat. Also, I don't think I have the presence of mind. I am currently slipping in and out of consciousness. I am taking so much cough syrup. Alrighty. Back to the story.
happened then?
Patty asked. Well, according to the story, Karun ran. Karun ran back to Portal Run and stood there for a moment, heart thudding, out of breath. Got to calm down. He told himself, got to think about this. You can't maximize your time if you go off half-cocked, deliberately disregarding the forefront of his mind, which is screaming at him to hurry up and do something. He dug his nail clippers out of his pocket and used the point of the file to dig the splinters out of his index finger. He dropped them onto the white inner sleeve of a Hershey bar he had eaten while tinkering with the transformer and trying to widen its afferent capability. He had apparently succeeded in that beyond his wildest dreams. One rolled off the wrapper and was lost. The other ended up in the Smithsonian Institution, locked in a glass case that was cordoned off with the thick velvet ropes and watched vigilantly and eternally by a computer-monitored closed-circuit TV camera. The splinter extraction finished. Karun felt a little calmer. A pencil. That was as good as anything. He took one from beside the clipboard of the shelf above him and ran it gently into the Portal 1. It disappeared smoothly, inch by inch, like something in an optical illusion or in a very good magician's trick. The pencil had said, Eberhard Faber No. 2 on one of its sides. Black letters stamped on yellow painted wood. When he had pushed the pencil until all but Eberhard had disappeared, Karun walked around to the other side of Portal 1. He looked in. He saw the pencil in cut-off view, as if a knife had chopped smoothly through it. Karun felt with his fingers where the rest of the pencil should have been. Of course, there was nothing. He ran across to the bar under Portal 2, and there was the missing part of the pencil. It was nothing. Anyway, lying on top of the crate, heart thumping so hard that it seemed to shake his entire chest, Karun grabs the sharpened point of his pencil and pulled to the rest of the way through. He held it up. He looked at it. Suddenly, he took it and wrote, It works! On a piece of barn board. He wrote it so hard that the lead snapped on the last letter. Karun began to laugh shrilly, and okay. Oh, where was I? I lost track of time. Like I said, I'm not very good at story reading. This is my first time doing this. On a piece of barnboard, he wrote so hard that the lead snapped on the last letter. Karun began to laugh shrilly in the empty barns. To laugh so hard that he startled the sleeping swallows into flight amongst the high rafters. Works! He shouted, and ran back to Portal 1. He was waving his arms. The broken pencil knotted up in one fist. Works! Works! Do you hear me, Carson? You scrap! It works! And I did it! Mark, what would you say to the children? No, wait.
Mark, what would you say to the children?
Merrill reproached him. Mark shrugged. It's what he's supposed to have said.
Well, can't you do a little selective editing?
I know that's what I just did.
Dad,
Patty asked.
is that pencil in the museum too? Does it...
Does it bear scrap in the woods? Mark said, and then clapped one hand over his mouth. Both children giggled wildly, but that shrill note was gone from Patty's voice. Mark was glad to hear, and after a moment of trying to look serious, Merrill began to giggle too. The key... where was I? Oh, yes. The keys went through next. Karun simply tossed them through the portal. He was beginning to think on track again now, and it seemed to him that the first thing that needed finding out was if the process produced things on the other end exactly as they had been, or if they were any way changed by the trick. He saw the keys go through and disappear. At exactly the same moment, he heard them jingle on the crate across the bar. He ran across, really only trotting now, and on the way he paused to shove the lead shower curtain back on its track. He didn't need either it or the ion gun now, just as well, since the iron gun was smashed beyond repair. He grabbed the keys, went to the lock the government had forced him to put on the door, and tried the Yale key. It worked perfectly. He tried the house key. It also worked. So did the keys which opened his file cabinets, and the ones which started the brat pickup. Chapter 3. Karun pickpocketed the keys and took off his watch. It was a Seiko Quartz LC with a built-in calculator below the digital face. 24 tiny buttons that would allow him to do everything from addition to subtraction to square roots. A delicate piece of machinery, and just as important, a chronometer. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be. I've really got to get better at this. I get caught up when he said chronometer, and I'm like, does he mean a watch? Karun put it down in front of Portal 1 and pushed it through with a pencil. He ran across and grabbed it up. When he put it through, the watch had said 11:31:07. It now said 11:31:49. Very good. So it did mean a watch. Right on the money. Only he could have had an assistant over there to peg the fact that there had been no time gain once and forever. Well, no matter. Soon enough, the government would have him wadding hip deep in assistance. He tried the calculator. 2 and 2 still made 4. 8 divided by 4 was still 2. The square root of 11 was still 3.3166247, and so on. That's when he decided it was mouse time.
What happened with the mice, Dad?
Ricky asked. Mark hesitated briefly. There would have to be some caution here. If he didn't want to scare his children, that is. Not to mention his wife into hysteria minutes away from their first jaunt. The major thing was to leave them with the knowledge that everything was alright now. And that the problem had been licked. As I said, there was a slight problem. Yes. Horror. Lunacy. Death. How's that for a slight problem, kids? Karun set the box, which I read. I came from Stackpole's House of Pets down on the shelf and glanced at his watch. Darned if he hadn't put the thing on upside down. He turned it around and saw that it was 1:45. He had only an hour and 1/4 of a computer time left. How the time flies when you're having fun, he thought, and giggled wildly. He opened the box, reached in and pulled out a squeaking white mouse by the tail. He put it down in front of Portal 1 and said, "Go on, mouse." The mouse promptly ran down the side of the orange crate, on which the portal stood, and scattered across the floor. Cursing, Karun chased it, and managed to actually get on it before it squirmed through a crack between 2 boards and was gone forever. Scrap! Karun screamed, and ran back to the box of mice. He was just in time to knock 2 potential escapees back into the box. He got a second mouse, holding this one around the body. He was by trade a physicist, and the ways of white mice were foreign to him, and slammed the lid box back down. This one he gave the old heave-ho, It clutched at Karun's palm, but to no avail. It went ahead over ratty little paws through Portal 1. Karun heard it immediately. Land on the crates across the barn. This time he sprinted, remembering how easily the first mouse had eluded him. He need not have worried. The white mouse nearly crouched on the crate, its eyes dull, its sides aspirating weakly. Karun slowed down and approached it carefully. He was not a man used to fooling with mice, but you didn't have to be a 40-year veteran to see something was terribly wrong here. The mouse didn't feel so good after it went through. Mark Oates told his children with a wide smile that only noticeably false to his wife. Karun touched the mouse. It was like touching something inert. Pink straw or stardust. Perhaps, except for the aspiring sides, the mouse did not look around at Karun. It stared straight ahead. He had thrown in a squirming, very frisky, and alive little animal. Here was something that seemed to be a living waxwork, a likeness of a mouse. Then Karun snapped his finger in front of the mouse's small pink eyes. It blinked and fell dead on its side. So Karun decided to try another mouse, Mark said. What happened to the first mouse? Ricky asked. Mark produced that wide smile again. It was retired with full honors, he said. Karun found a paper bag and put the mouse into it. He would take it to Moscone, the vet, that evening. Moscone could dissect it and tell him if its inner workings had been rearranged. The government would disapprove his bringing a private citizen into the project, which would be classified triple top secret as soon as they knew about it. Tough titty. As the kitty was reputed to have said to the babes who complained about the warmth of the milk. Karun was determined that the Great White Father in Washington would know about this as late in the game as possible. For all the scant help the Great White Father had given him, he could wait. Tough titty. Then he remembered that Moscone, that's not a swear, lived way the heck and gone on the other side of New Paltz, and that there wasn't enough gas in the brat to get halfway across town, let alone back. But it was 2:03. He had less than an hour of computer time left. Worry about the code dissection later. Karun constructed a makeshift chute leading to the entrance of Portal 1. Really, the first John slide, Mark told the children, and Patty found the idea of a John slide for mice deliciously funny, and dropped a fresh white mouse into it. He blocked the end with a large book, and after a few moments of aimlessly pattering and sniffling, the mouse went through the portal and disappeared. Karun ran back across the barn. The mouse was DOA. There was no blood, no bodily swellings to indicate that a radical change in pressure had ruptured something inside. Karun supposed that oxygen starvation might, which he shook his head impatiently. It took the white mouse only nanoseconds to go through. His own watch had confirmed that time remained a constant in the process. Or darn close to it. The second white mouse joined the first in the paper sack. Karun got a third out. A fourth if you counted the fortunate mouse that escaped through the crack. Wondering for the first time which would end first, his computer or his supply of mice. He held this one firmly around the body and forced its haunches through the portal. Across the room, he saw the haunches reappear. Just the haunches. He means the butt, for those of you that don't know. The disembodied little feet were digging frantically at the rough wood of the crate. Karun pulled the mouse back. No catatonia here. It bit the webbing between his thumb and forefinger hard enough to bring blood. Karun dropped the mouse and hurried back into the I came from Sackpool's House of Pets box and used the small bottle of hydrogen peroxide in his lab's first aid kit to disinfect the bite. He put a band-aid over it, then rummaged around until he found a pair of heavy work gloves. He could feel time running out. Running out. Running out. It was 2:11 now. He got another mouse and pushed it through backward. All the way. He would cross to the portal too. The mouse lived for almost 2 minutes. It even walked a little, after a fashion. It staggered across the Pomona orange crate, fell on its side, struggled wiggly to its feet, and then only squatted there. Karun snapped his fingers near its head and lurched perhaps 4 steps further before falling down inside again. The aspiration of its side slowed, stopped. It was dead. Karun felt a chill. He went back, got another mouse, and pushed it halfway through head first. He saw it reappear on the other end, just the head, then the neck, and finally the chest. Cautiously, Karun relaxed his grip on the mouse's body, ready to grab it if it got frisky. It didn't. The mouse only stood there, half of it on one side of the barn, half on the other. Karun jogged back to Portal 2. The mouse was alive, but its pink eyes were glazed and dull. Its whiskers didn't move. Going around to the back of the portal, Karun saw an amazing sight, as he had seen the pencil in the cutaway. So now he saw the mouse. He saw the vertebrae of its tiny spine ending abruptly in the round white circles. He saw its blood moving through the vessels. He saw the tissue moving gently with the tide of life around its minuscule gullet. If nothing else, he thought, and wrote later in his Popular Mechanics article, it would make a wonderful diagnostic tool. Then he noticed that the tidal movement of the tissues had ceased. The mouse had died. Chapter 4. Karun pulled the mouse by the snout, not liking the feel of it, and dropped it onto the paper sack with its companions. Enough with the white mice, he decided. The mice die. They die if you put them through all the way. They die if you put them through halfway head first. Put them through halfway butt first. They stay frisky. The scrap is in there. Sensory input, he thought almost randomly. When they go through, they see something, hear something, touch something. Code, maybe even smell something. That literally kills them. But what? He had no idea. But he meant to find out. Karun still had almost 40 minutes before Comlink pulled the database out from under him. He unscrewed the thermometer from the wall beside his kitchen door, trotted back to the barn with it, and put it through the portals. The thermometer went in at 83 degrees Fahrenheit, came out at 83 degrees Fahrenheit. He rummaged through the spare room where he kept a few toys to amuse his grandchildren with. Among them, he found a packet of balloons. He blew one of them up, tied it off, and batted it through with the portal. It came out intact and unharmed. A start down the road towards answering his question about a sudden change in pressure somehow caused what he was already thinking of as the jaunting pulses. With 5 minutes to go before the witching hour, he ran into his house. Snatched up his goldfish bowl. Inside, Percy and Patrick swished their tails and darted about in agitation, and ran back with it. He shoved the goldfish bowl through Portal 1. He hurried across to Portal 2, where his goldfish bowl sat on the crate. Patrick was floating belly up. Percy swam slowly around near the bottom of the bowl, as if dazed. A moment later, he also floated belly up. Karun was reaching for the goldfish bowl when Percy gave a weak flick of his tail and resumed lackadaisical swimming. Slowly, he seemed to throw off whatever effect the had been, and by the time Karun got back from Mosconi's veterinary clinic the That night at 9 o'clock, Percy seemed as perky as ever. Patrick was dead. Karoon fed Percy a double ration of fish food and gave Patrick's hero burial in the garden. After the computer had cut him out for the day, Karoon decided to hitch a ride over to Mosconi's. Accordingly, he was standing on the shoulder of Route 26 at 3:45 that afternoon, dressed in jeans and a loud plaid sport coat, his thumb out, a paper bag in his other hand. Finally, a kid, driving a Chevette not much bigger than a sardine can, pulled over, and Karoon got in. "Oh, what you got in the bag, my man?" "Bunch of dead mice," Karoon said. Eventually, another car stopped. When the farmer behind the wheels asked about the bag, Karoon told him it was a couple of sandwiches. Moscone dissected one of the mice on the spot and agreed to dissect the others and call Karoon on the phone with the results. The initial result was not very encouraging. So far as Moscone could tell, the mouse he had opened up was perfectly healthy, except for the fact that it was dead. Oh, depressing. Victor Karoon was eccentric, but he was no fool, Mark said. The jaunt attendants were getting close now, and he supposed he would have to hurry up, or he would be finishing this in the wake-up room in Whitehead City. Hitching a ride back home that night, and he had to walk most of the way. So the story goes. He realized he may have solved a third of the energy crisis at one single stroke. All goods that had to go by train and truck and boat and plane before they could be jaunted. You could write a letter to your friend in London or Rome or Senegal, and you could have it the very next day, without even an ounce of oil needing to be burned. We take it for granted, but it was a big thing to Karoon, believe me, and to everyone else as well.
But what happened to the mice, Daddy?
That's what Karoon kept asking himself, Mark said, because he also realized that if people could use the jaunt, that would solve almost all of the energy crisis, and we might be able to conquer space. In his Popular Mechanics article, he said that even the stars could finally be ours. And the metaphor he used was crossing a shallow stream without getting your shoes wet. You just get a big rock and throw it in the stream, then get another rock, stand on the first rock and throw it into the stream and go back to the third rock, go back to the second rock, throw a third rock into the stream and keep it like that until you made a path of stepping stones all the way across the stream. Or in this case, the solar system, or maybe even the galaxy.
I don't get it at all,
Patty said. That's because you got turkey turds for brains, Ricky said smugly.
I do not, Daddy. Ricky said. Children, don't.
Marley said gently. Karoon pretty much foresaw what had happened, Mark said. Drone rocket ships programmed to land first on the moon, then on Mars, then on Venus, and the outer moons of Jupiter. Drones really only programmed to do one thing after they had launched: set up a jaunt station for astronauts. Mark nodded. And now there are scientific outposts all over the solar system. And maybe someday, long after we're gone, there'll even be another planet for us. There are jaunt ships on their way to 4 different star systems with solar systems of their own. But it'll be a long, long time before they get there.
I want to know what happened to the mice,
Patty said impatiently. Well, eventually the government got into it, Mark said. Karoon kept them out as long as he could, but finally they got wind of it and landed on him with both feet. Karoon was nominal head of the Jaunt Project until he died 10 years later. But he was never really in charge of it again. Geez, the poor guy, Rick said. But he got to be a hero, Patricia said.
He's in all the history books, just like President Lincoln and President Hart.
Instead of saying Patty, it said Patricia. That's why I got the voice mixed up. I'm sure that's a great comfort to him, wherever he is, Mark thought, then went on, carefully glossing over the rough parts. The government, which had been pushed to the wall by the escalating energy crisis, did indeed come with both feet. It wanted the jaunt on a paying basis as soon as possible, like yesterday. Faced with the economic crisis and the increasingly probable picture of anarchy and mass starvation in the 1990s, only last-ditch pleading made them put off the announcement of the jaunt before an exhaustive spectrographic analysis of jaunted articles could be completed. Anyways, when the analysis were complete, the jaunt then showed no changes in the makeup of jaunted artifacts. The existence of the jaunt was announced to the international hoopla, showing intelligence for once. Necessity is, after all, the mother of invention. The US government put Young and Rubicam in charge of PR. And that is where the myth-making around Victor Caroon, an elderly, rather peculiar man who showered perhaps twice a week and changed his clothes, only when he thought of it, began. Yes, every inventor. Oh shoot. Well then, everybody. Gosh. I don't even know what happened for the next few seconds. It looks like that's where I'm gonna have to bring it in to this section. I had no idea I would be running out of time so soon. And believe me, when I searched this up, when I typed in top 3 scariest short stories, I said short stories. This was not how I thought this would be. I thought I would be able to do 3 of these. I did not know that I would misread the first one, and then end up having to read a freaking paragraph of the second one. But, sorry, I'm still very ill. But, this was nice. It went a lot better than I thought it would, and I hope my reading capabilities were up to snuff. I'm not sure if I'll do this again. I will have to see how people react. So, if you guys liked what you saw, and you would like to see more of it, maybe perhaps not scary stories this time, though nothing really scary happened this time, then please let me know, and I would be more than happy to do more. Or if you have any other ideas for the show, please let me know as well. And yes, this is preparation for the Q&A, so be prepared! Having said that, I will do one final read around, so anybody starting now, if anybody has anything they would like me to say or want me to hear, then please begin. Tool Guy Meme says, it's only been an hour. Yes, I know. I do have to cut this episode short. Against my own will. Mystica says, I want a funny story. I don't have time tonight. If I could, I would. Trust me, I would. I want to do this show for as long as I am able. And I want to do it for as long as I'd like. And if I could, I would. I would. Ms. Jessica says, after this, maybe. Tool Gaming says, soon I'll send a photo of my painting, and I loved this episode. I'm glad! Pep said thumbs up. Yay! Okay, well, I'm glad you all enjoyed this. And if we do it again, maybe I can pick it up. Maybe I can pick it up where I left off, or maybe we can try something new. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I can read a terrible AI-generated story and just watch my brain die as I read the misgrammatical representation. Anyhow, I would like to thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in. All of you guys watching, whether you participated or not, whether you're watching this live or not, I still want to give you my sincere thanks. Because you guys are the reason why I do this. You all are the reason why doing this, for me at least, is so much fun. And you guys make me want to do better each and every single time I hit go live. So thank you from the bottom of this thing I call the heart for tuning in. Having said that, I hope you all have a positively electric morning, afternoon, evening, and a very, very good night. I will see you all in the next episode. Toodles!
This is the end card song. That means the show is over. And now it's time to go home and wait for the next entry. But until then, I'll see you in the next episode.